All right, part two of the 1985 Marvel's Justice League Squadron Supreme 12-issue maxi series. It's about politics, folks, so, see where this goes. Now, it's real important to try to maybe check out the first video where I kind of set up some of the themes and what I feel like why this book is relevant, at least with politics of today, even though this was written 30 years ago. History repeats itself. If you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it and be fooled. So basically, what has happened is that thanks to an invasion, well, the Overmind showing up and taking mental control of the Squadron Supreme, it has left America decimated economically, spiritually, morally, every way possible. People are starving. People are, there's no electricity. The government's collapsed. It's just really bad. People were thrown into concentration camps before this by the Squadron Supreme. So there's a lot of distrust among them to begin with. And as they got back together and decided to become proactive, to take a year of taking all the responsibilities of government, and they're out to, have no crime, cure disease, maybe even cure death, just fix all the nation's problems, and then hand it over back to them and stuff. Nighthawk, who's their version of Batman, was president, and he decided that he was not going to assassinate Hyperion, even though he tried to warn them that this is not a good idea to do. It fell on deaf ears, much like the reader probably does when he reads this. Like, what's wrong with a utopia, making the whole world like Paradise Island and things like taking away violence and crime and guns and things like that. It sounds good. So basically, we pick up with issue 2. Now, issue 2 just about broke me because every good writer has something in it that does not stick out like a sore thumb. Everything in a story, it moves the story forward. And when I first read this, I kind of I was like, what was that about? It made no sense. And of course, my phone would go off. And anyway, so basically what would happen is that this issue shows what's going on with the utopia plan. A small sacrifice is what this issue number 2 is called, right? Now, guys like Brad Meltzer and Judd Winnick are probably around my age, Jeff Johns as well, and all of them have kind of played with relationships like how we kind of saw them in the DC Comics, in the 70s and 80s with the satellite era of the Justice League and whatnot. And like Identity Crisis is the one that pops up in Brad Meltzer's first 12 issues of the Justice League of America book that he came out with. He kind of played with it, man. Thanks to like the Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil series in the 70s, you had Green Arrow and Green Lantern being really good friends and had their own kind of relationship. Green Arrow and the Flash had their own little relationship, and that kind of carried over, and that's really well done because they all sort of pair up while they're doing these humanitarian missions across America. And the first thing they're kind of doing is meeting basic needs, man. They're delivering food to people in the starving, man. They're meeting with mayors and doing publicity and media and stuff to make people, let them know what we're doing. They're clearing the roads and the highways and trying to provide jobs and everything like that. But then it's like I mentioned how Tom Thumb, who's actually symbolic of the working class, the blue collar, the ones who actually get their hands dirty and actually make things happen. People come up with ideas. They're the ones that make it happen. They're the ones that put in the blood and the sweat and stuff, right? Well, we started getting a little bit of the heroes being a little bit elitist and getting into the limelight. While they're using the megaphone, Dr. Spectrum and the Golden Archer, they're all talking about what they've done, how they're going to do this, we're going to make it better than ever. And then Tom Thumb wants to speak, and they just hand the megaphone over his head back to the mayor and ignore him, right? And let's face it, man. When I think the best way that I can think of blue collar, in my opinion, is they don't really get a pat on the back until something goes wrong. In the military, I always notice that you got these cooks who are cooking 2 meals a day for, hundreds of people, and the only time they actually ever hear anything is when they mess up. You let a cook mess up in the military, then they'll hear something. Never a pat on the back or anything like that. Okay, so that's one thing, and then these radicals pop up. They're called the Freedom Force, and it's just a bunch of American citizens with, still have guns, and we're taking things in a context where we're seeing them through the hero's eyes, right? They call themselves the Freedom Force. It's just a bunch of citizens who come up and they put a gun on the mayor, and they're telling the heroes should drop their weapons. Now, we're so used to reading comic books, we kind of forget that a bow and arrow is actually, to a certain extent, more dangerous than a single action rifle, let's say. There are bows that are able to catapult an arrow faster and harder with more force than an actual gun. And then we have Dr. Spectrum, who has his power prism, a Green Lantern ring more or less, but it's a power prism and stuff. And they're told to drop it. And the Freedom Force is saying that we are placing you as the people of America. We're going to place you under arrest for the concentration camps and things that you set up. Well, they were under mind control. Nobody's going to listen to them, and they're not listening to these people. They're not going to try to offer them an explanation. They just take them down. Now, reading this comic and knowing that it's all, usually the heroes are always in the right, that's one thing that is just amazing about this, is that despite the Squadron Supreme's good intentions, they are fascists. What we are watching is the loss of rights guaranteed in our Constitution and the Bill of Rights and stuff. We are seeing individual rights taken away, much like Obamacare. One of the things they want to do is eradicate health, disease and things like that. Is there anything wrong with offering everybody insurance to have health? I don't think so. But what they do is that if you don't get Obamacare and you don't have health insurance, you are penalized financially, and they take that around text time if you have not gotten on their website that doesn't work half the time and register for it. That's my opinion, but that's kind of what's reflected in this, forcing things on the people. The government is supposed to stay out of things. The Squadron Supreme has taken upon themselves to take, over the government for a year, and they're implementing all these programs and stuff on everybody, and that's up for debate. That's one of the things where let's not get politically sensitive here and stuff. But that's what is amazing about this. Mark Ringwald has it all in here. People are starving, feed them food. Absolutely, it sounds like it's right, man. But there's going to be other. But when the people speak up, they're not going to be listened to, and they take away their guns. And then they start talking about how they can't wait to get the gun program off the ground. When they start taking people's guns and stuff, and we start seeing pictures in here throughout here where they have just piles and piles of guns, and they're getting thrown into factories and melted down and stuff, right? So what basically happens is that even though they're taking away people's guns, violating a Second Amendment right, the heroes get to keep their weapons. They get to keep their bow and arrow, their power prism, their heat vision. Okay, you follow me here? That's the basic idea that they have superpowers. They're the only ones that are empowered. And you take away people's guns, and the government has nothing to fear from their people. You cannot have a democracy without people having a way to fight back, and that's what this kind of shows. As the Squadron Supreme gets a little bit more elite, and they start playing for the cameras and doing other things with the media to make the people accept them and get an image going and stuff like that, trying to make people complacent and trust them and stuff. They really have no way to fight back and have a voice, and that's what this shows. The Squadron Supreme, mind control or not, did take people and put them in concentration camps. If people can't rise up and fight, what keeps them from doing it again? And that's what this issue is sort of starting to lead up to, with the appearance of the scarlet centurion from the future. Now, what we have here is every issue, Mark Grunwald, just about every issue, they kind of sit down, and it's kind of like the Squadron Supreme. Yes, they're having a superhero meeting. We've seen it dozens of times, but they're holding Congress is what they're doing. And they're updating themselves and everybody and the readers on their progress. This book seems to take place in real time. A year, every comic is, takes place a month at a time. And so they talk about all these programs that they can't wait to get off the ground, and how they fed people, and they're at 75% this and 95% that. But all these programs are dependent on Tom Thumb coming up with scientific ways and inventions and things to make them happen, the blue-collar worker. And in the middle of this, Scarlet Centurion, like just on the cover, appears before them like in a hologram and says that he's going to come back, he's going to invade Earth, he's finally going to take over America and stuff from the future at their lowest point in time. And Hyperion jumps up there. You know, Truth, Justice, and the American Way jumps up there in his face and is like, you come now, I will kill you. That is a promise. And he's like, why would I want to take over a world with, it's in ruin anyway, and stuff like that. And that always never sit right with me. But it finally started making sense about the third or fourth time I read this, and I was like 13, so I was really proud of myself for figuring this out. Nuke, their Firestorm, the man who represents the young generation of America, talking to the older generation of America, walks in and he tells Tom Thumb how his parents have cancer, and if you're going to, since we're doing all this stuff in the Utopia program, let's cure cancer. Tom's like, I didn't even think about that. I don't know if we can do this and everything. So he's like, yeah, we'll do it. And he's doing tests on Nucleon with his powers and stuff. And he promises to do it, and he's just like, I don't know. And he has a moment where he's like, I shouldn't have promised that. Then he's like slamming his fist. He's like, let's do it. Let's go for it. And, other things happen. More people are showing up. The radicals are showing up. And the youth of America, being a former youth of America myself, man, 17 to 25 is a tough time, at least for a male. I'll tell you that right now and stuff, right? And there's a certain things where it seems like every generation of youngsters, they don't have a lot of patience, and they don't want things. They want things now, and they don't want to be lied to and betrayed. It's kind of like the older generation. If they don't follow through on anything, it's kind of like being betrayed by a parent. It's kind of what it feels like. And what happens is, as the Squadron Supreme comes out, the riots are still going on with people. The streets are full of people rioting and stuff. They're still hungry, and they're trying to do crowd control. Very Watchmen-like with Nighthawk and the Comedian in issue 2, where they were in the streets of Detroit right before they passed the Keene Act and stuff, right? But Nucleon loses his crap. He loses his patience. He's young. He's hot-headed, much like his name, and he scares the crap out of them, making like this nuclear tornado above him to scatter the crowd. His powers have been acting up. And everybody's starting to notice that, something's going on with him. His parents are freaking dying. Tom Thumb's promised to cure them and stuff, right? So Tom Thumb makes him a suit. He basically finds out that Nuke is his powers, that radiation leaking constantly that killed his parents and gave him cancer. He makes him this bulky radiation suit, and Nuke is already ungrateful. He's like, I look ridiculous in this, and aren't you going to do this? You already said you were going to cure him. What's going on? So they show Tom Thumb working on it, and Nuke checking up on him, the impetuous younger generation who wants change, and it's the rebellion. He is the rebel of it. And that's another thing, with politics and the generations of American Americana, man, we always have rebels. The younger generation always rebels against something. It's just part of growing up. We know about the hippies of the 60s and free love and what they were rebelling against, yet as they got older, they ended up becoming the yuppies of the 80s. Always rebels and stuff. And like today's society, it seems like, at least over here in America, is that like the things we rebel against is anything conservative. Even when they don't think it through. Change is good. Let's let go of the old ways and stuff, which, yeah, again, thinking of the big pictures and stuff, there's something to that, and there's other things that I think it's going to, harm they're not thinking. But anyway, so we go back to the Scarlet Centurion, and Tom Thumb decides he's going to go to the future. He's going to go to the future, visit the Scarlet Centurion in the year 4000. And this is where, again, I was having a problem. Like, why did the Scarlet Centurion just pop up out of nowhere? That makes no sense, and then back down. So Tom Thumb ends up going to the future, and when he arrives at the future, there's a Scarlet Centurion sitting on his throne in what looks like a utopian society. And he tells Tom Thumb, you want cure for cancer? No problem. And he has a vial sent up. And then this liquid, it cures every disease known. They have no disease in the future. And he makes a deal with him. I'll give you this vial to cure cancer, and all you got to do is take this argonite, which is like kryptonite, to Hyperion, sprinkle it in his food, and let it kill him. And Tom Thumb says no. He will not do it. One person, he's not going to kill one person for the benefit of others, of a bigger picture. We also come to find out that Tom Thumb has cancer. Not only did he make a choice like that, but he also doomed himself. You know, if he doesn't, now he's got more pressure. Not only do I need to find the cure of cancer, I need to find it so I can keep living for this utopian program. Again, the white collar people sacrificing things for the greater good. Now, there's two things here that I think that was not spoon fed to us, right? And it's open interpretation. Why does a good writer, like I said, always everything in the book that they write, anything that they write in their story is relevant? What if the Scarlet Centurion went back just to push Hyperion a little bit more to make sure that their utopia program is what ends up starting the domino effect for that utopia bland future in the year 4000, where Scarlet Centurion is the one sitting on the throne, looks like he's ruling everything? Could that be what makes it possible for him to rule the future? Is that why he came back and messed around the Squadron Supreme to make sure that events in time went forward? And the other thing is that individual rights. We're talking about Second Amendment. We're talking about people losing individual rights and losing their freedom of choice, having the government in their business a little bit more, which was the whole point of this country, is to keep the government out of their everyday business. Here we have the blue collar worker, in the older generation of the Squadron Supreme, refusing to sacrifice one person for a greater good, to the point that he sacrificed himself. Yet, by taking away these individual rights that of other people, of the American people, and giving them food and everything like that, but taking away their guns literally out of their hands, and piling up and everything like that, and a few other things that are going to pop up in the series and stuff, right? When does the greater good interfere? I mean, we're talking about people losing individual rights for somebody telling us this is a greater good, and that's kind of what's going on today, All right, I'm going to leave it there with issue 2, and maybe I'll make a number 3 here later. All right, later, guys.